channel. Today we're going to be going over my second trimester symptoms. I wanted to do these now that I am 28 weeks today because this way they're fresh in my head and I can just compile all of them before I get too much into my third trimester, but I will be doing a third trimester video as well. And today I'm going to go over all my second trimester symptoms. Maybe me expressing some of these symptoms to you guys will help you because I did actually get a bladder infection and a cold throughout the second trimester. So I'll talk to you guys a little bit about that and how I dealt with it. And if you're interested in watching all that, then just keep on watching. Okay, so first off, let's start off with my headaches. Those did continue into my second trimester. I did get the very long headaches that were a lot of days in the first trimester. And then in the second one, they did start to dissipate a little bit more, but they didn't stop until 16 weeks. Basically, the same thing that I said in my last video, which is my doctor just suggested that I be a little bit more aggressive with my headaches and just maybe try Excedrin aspirin-free or some Tylenol and caffeine, and that might help me. I do always stay really hydrated, so I wouldn't say that it was caused by that, but it definitely helped to always have water and food in my system because that was one of my triggers. If I didn't have that, I would start to get the headaches. Thankfully, those did stop after 16 weeks because they were pretty brutal. And then the awesomest thing happened right around 15 and 16 weeks is that I started feeling flutters in my belly. So researching online and then also from just asking a lot of my friends who have kids, they all said that the flutters were actually the baby moving. And I did know that the baby could move already. So I was really excited around 15 to 16 weeks to start feeling those flutters and knowing that baby was there. They were super far between. At first, I honestly didn't think it was that. I thought it was cast bubbles or something else. Once I had a little bit more consistency, not much, nothing that you could set your clock to or anything like that. But once I did realize it was the baby, it just made me feel so great. It's the most amazing feeling. But it did just feel like butterflies, little flutters. The best way I can explain it is it just felt like butterflies kind of flying across my belly. But it was an amazing feeling. Definitely by far one of my favorite things in the second trimester is starting to feel my baby crawl. One of my symptoms that did actually get a little bit worse was that my breasts did end up hurting quite a bit. So much that I actually had to go to bed with a tank top with some support. I started using the nursing tank tops because that's what was recommended to me from one of my friends. I wanted to make the investment. I did have all of that already ready because I had done a lot of maternity shopping by this point. You can check that out in my maternity must-haves. I'll put a link to the video. And I did end up using those quite a bit. After a while, they also stopped hurting. So towards the end of my second trimester, I actually stopped having to use the tank tops. I just went back to wearing my t-shirts to bed and it was a lot better. But the one thing that did happen was that I did end up getting a pain right underneath my left breast. And it kind of felt like that pain was inside my rib cage or in my cartilage. So I told my doctor about it because she basically wanted to rule out anything being there. She couldn't feel a mass or anything, but she wanted to rule it out. She did send me for ultrasound. So I ended up getting an ultrasound of my left breast and thank God everything was okay. They did not see a mass or anything. They said that it was possible that it was just my ribs and possibly the cartilage underneath getting irritated. But if the pain didn't stop or proceeded to get worse, we would just have to do an x-ray after I gave birth because obviously I'm pregnant, so I can't do x-rays right now. But so far, actually, the pain has completely gone away. Not anything that I've noticed recently. So that is such a relief and I'm really happy about that. All right, so this next one is a really weird symptom that nobody has ever told me about or that I've ever heard about. I don't even know if it's a pregnancy symptom, but I'm assuming that it is. I did obviously go online on what to expect and stuff like that, and I researched it. And some people definitely were having these, but basically my left eye, I can't remember now, but I think it was my left eye, constantly was watering. I couldn't even keep makeup on it. I always had like my makeup or my mascara running down my face because it would not stop watering no matter what I did. And I really thought, wow, my eyes must be really just hydrated or whatever. But once I talked to my eye doctor, they actually said that it's probably because my eyes were dry. So I ended up using artificial tears in my eyes because maybe I thought they were just very dry and they were trying to, you know, moisturize themselves by keep tearing up. But unfortunately, that didn't help at all. I did also experience extremely dry eyes. So it was either I was crying from my left eye all the time, or I had really dry eyes, both of them, and I constantly had to use drops. So what I ended up doing was I would put eye drops in my eye, the artificial tear ones, in my left eye every single morning, hoping that they would be hydrating enough that my eye wouldn't tear. And that kind of seemed to solve the problem because I did not have that issue again. I did still have the issue where my eyes were dry and I had to use the drops every now and then. And I still do, but for the most part, the excessive crying and like tearing of my eye did stop. I just started putting the drops on in the morning as a preventative measure. So that was a weird one. So this next one was a really hard part of my second trimester. Basically, from the beginning, I always had to pee a lot. I constantly was going to the restroom every like 10 to 30 minutes. And I was just like, okay, well, this is normal. And it was normal at first, but then all of a sudden, I don't remember what week it was. I want to say it was maybe like my 20th week. All of a sudden, when I would come home from work during my commute, I would urgently have to go to the restroom. So much that I was in pain. I was crying because I was in traffic and there was nowhere I could stop. I couldn't get off the highway. I was literally stuck. And this would happen every single day for almost a week. And I thought to myself, wow, I can't believe that this is so excruciating. How does anybody deal with this? So I kind of just told myself, this is because I drink a lot of water and I'm pregnant and I'm getting farther along in my pregnancy. And then I kind of just let it go. But the rest of the week, what ended up starting to happen was I would get these weird hip pains. And the best way I can describe them is that they were waves of pain. Basically, it would wave from the back all the way to my front. It would just be a wave over and over, and then it would stop. And it would kind of be on and off for like a few minutes. And it would happen throughout the whole day. Sometimes it would happen at night. Not much in the morning. It would feel a little bit better, but definitely would happen at work. I talked to one of my coworkers about it and she said, yeah, you know, these are just round ligament pains. I totally know how you feel. And I was kind of explaining to her that I didn't feel them as stretching ligaments. I didn't feel them on my abdomen or my pelvis. So I started getting a little bit worried. I did call the nurse at my doctor's office and she said that they sounded like round ligament pains. But to me, they still felt really weird. She did think it was a little odd that I was feeling them in my hips, but she said the pain could sometimes radiate. Nonetheless, fast forward, I started to have to go to the restroom a lot more over the weekend of, I believe, my 20th week. And I've had urinary tract infections before. So when all of a sudden I really had to go to the restroom and nothing came out, and it was just like drops, there was no pain, there was no burning, but it was just drops, and I had this huge urgency to go. I realized I think I have a bladder infection. So what I did then was I called the emergency line at my doctor's office because clearly I was really worried. I was starting to think that the pains in my hips were because of this. And I also got worried because these can lead to kidney infections, and then those can affect the baby, I believe. So, or at least they can affect my body, and that's not a good thing. So basically, I called the emergency line, and my doctor wasn't there, but the other on-call doctor was, and she was so sweet and amazing. And she unfortunately told me in a very calm way that I had to go to the emergency room. So they do have an obstetrics unit for the emergency room for women who are pregnant. So she told me to go there, and she basically just said, I'm worried that it might be something else. Doesn't really sound like a bladder infection, but it might be, and you might have to get antibiotics for it. The weird thing that I was telling her about was my hip pain and how it was radiating and how it came in waves. She thought that was weird. She thought it might be musculoskeletal, which is basically just saying that my bones and like my ligaments and everything were stretching and like feeling really painful, but it could be something else. So we ended up going to the hospital. I think like it was like 8 at night. And fortunately, they put me onto a monitor right away to see if I was having any contractions. And then they also put a Doppler for the baby to make sure that her heartbeat was strong, and it was very strong. So thankfully she was okay and did not notice any of this going on, which is awesome. And then the doctor actually had to deliver like 2 C-section births and then like another birth emergency. So we were waiting for a little bit, but not too long, definitely not as long as like a normal emergency room. So we were really, really lucky. When she came in, I had given a urine sample. She basically said that I did have a bladder infection and we would have to start me on antibiotics. And what I was experiencing was likely of 2 things: the bladder infection irritating my body and my body trying to tell me that I had an infection, or I was experiencing contractions, which you can also get from having an infection. So you can go into preterm labor if it's really bad, or you can have preterm contractions, which is what she thought they kind of sounded like, because I kept saying they came in waves, radiated through my back and hips. And they didn't actually tell me if they saw any on the monitor, but she just diagnosed that it was in fact a bladder infection. So I started taking antibiotics, and thankfully by day 2, I started feeling a lot better. I'm not gonna lie, it was so painful because of my hips and everything just being in pain. So I have been really scared of getting another bladder infection. What I basically do is I never hold my pee. I always drink tons of water, or I should say I always continue to drink tons of water. And I also take some cranberry pills. My husband asked the doctor about that. That would be fine, just to take the cranberry pills, not the juice, because the juice had too much sugar in it. And obviously I didn't want that because I hadn't even had my glucose test. So I was like, I didn't know how my placenta was processing sugar. Anyway, so that was one of my crazy symptoms that I ended up having. So definitely don't ignore any kind of insane urgency to go to the restroom and then you actually don't have to pee, because you could possibly have a bladder infection, and they are a lot more common during pregnancy, which I soon found out. And speaking of the sugar and the placenta and everything, I did get my glucose test, was lucky enough to pass it. So everything was good. The drink was not that bad. I got this like lemony, really kind of thick juice, and it was only about this big. I want to say it was 8 ounces. And I believe I did the 3-hour test. That's just the norm of what my doctor's office does. And they did take my blood sample 3 times. And they called me a week later and said everything was fine. I had also taken another urine analysis just to make sure that my infection was gone. And my infection was also gone. So I didn't think that the glucose test was that bad. It didn't taste too bad to me. I drink so much water that something that had a little bit of flavor was kind of a refreshment for me. So I didn't mind it. And then my husband actually came with me. He was nice enough to just bring his laptop and work, although he ended up being on his phone. But he was nice enough to come with me and just spend those 3 hours. So it went by pretty quickly because I did also have an ultrasound and my doctor's appointment. So I did have a lot of appointments throughout the time. I just was really hungry. So afterwards we went to eat. So all was good with my glucose test. And I was really, really happy to hear about that, because I was so afraid that I would have to just basically change everything about my diet very drastically, I'm assuming. Obviously, I've never been through that, but I do try to eat very healthy. But I'm not gonna lie, I mean, I like cookies sometimes, and by sometimes I mean like every night. So that was gonna be hard to give up, let's be honest. After I got my bladder infection, it kind of started to be flu season. I had already gotten my flu shot, but I did end up getting a really bad cold. I don't know if it was just really bad or it just lingered a long time because I'm pregnant and my immune system is down, but it was just this cold that would just never go away. It got progressively worse. Usually by the 2nd or 3rd day, I'm feeling a little bit better. But this one, by the 4th or 5th day, I was still feeling really sick. I had to call out of work. I was basically just in bed, just having tons of fluids and trying to feel better. The other bad part was that because I completely have to go to the restroom all the time and there's more pressure on my bladder, every single time I sneezed, I would pee myself. And it was so traumatic. And I know it sounds like kind of funny, and it was kind of funny now that I look in retrospect, sort of, but it was so horrible because I felt like I had no control over my bladder. I had to sneeze. I had to cough all the time. I was waking up in the middle of the night coughing. I was sleeping even worse than I already do because I have to get up every 3 hours to pee. And it was just absolutely miserable because everything hurt. My voice started to go away and I was getting super achy. Obviously, there's not a lot I can take. I did call my doctor and she said I could take Robitussin, but not the DM one. And then she also recommended that I do, what's the other thing? Oh, Vicks, I believe. I think they also said I could take Tylenol, but basically what I had to do was write it out. What I basically took was the Robitussin that was safe for me. I also had some ginger drops and some lemon that I would melt in hot water. And that was the only thing that made my throat feel better and just made me feel better all around. So I would, and my last symptom that I've been having is my sciatic pain. So that one did start a little bit more so towards the end of my second trimester. So basically the sciatic pain can be on your glute and down your leg and lower back. I believe lower back, but for me, it's right in my glutes and it's only on my right side for the most part. And my doctor just suggested that I use a tennis ball and roll it out, which has helped. I actually have a tennis ball at work. I have a tennis ball here at home. I use it not super often, but whenever it does strike and it starts being pretty painful, especially at work, I'll use it. When I'm home, for the most part, I can relax and just lay down. And if my husband's here, he can help me do stuff. But it definitely has started to put some pressure and pain on my hips and my sciatic. So I try not to overdo things. That's like the best advice that I can give, is that once you start feeling that pain come on, if you keep doing what you're doing, which is maybe just walking or exercising or standing up or doing house chores or whatever it is, if you continue to do that, then your sciatic pain is just going to get worse. Just listen to your body and give it a rest. Because, oh, and I almost forgot to mention, I did actually get some stretch marks already in my second trimester. I guess because my belly did start to grow quite quickly, I did get a couple stretch marks already. I do use my cream. I try to be pretty diligent about that, but I got stretch marks on my love handles, basically just here on my hips. And I also think I'm getting a stretch mark right where my belly button ring used to be and my belly button. So I've gotten one little line. I can't really tell if it's a stretch mark, but I'm assuming it is because it's a little red. And then I've had a few different lines, not full like stretch mark lines, but like just like little dots of stretch marks on both of my hips. So trying to be pretty good about the lotion, but of course they really say that it might not help, but you know, might as well try. Let me also show you guys the belly. So right now I am technically in my third trimester, but I'm right at the beginning. So I kind of just wanted to show you my belly so that you could see how much it has grown. Okay guys, so that's it for my second trimester symptoms. Thanks so much for watching my video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.